Can you tell me what the latest is?
Well, the latest is that today we learned that the train was traveling at 106 miles per hour through a curve that had a maximum authorized speed of 50 miles an hour. So we're certainly going to be trying to understand why that was the case.
Okay, now can you tell me a little bit about the PTC system, why it's not in place over here?
Positive train control is designed to prevent the very type of accident that we're dealing with here, an overspeed sort of a situation. Amtrak has it throughout a lot of the Northeast corridor, but it's not installed here. And that's one of the first questions we're going to try and answer, is why it was not installed here. It's not required to be installed. Congress has mandated by the end of this year it be installed. It's not required to be installed now. But we want to understand what their implementation plan is and how quickly they plan to have it throughout the entire network.
Okay, now what are the plans and for how long will it take to get all the trains off, repairs made, so they could get the Northeast corridor open?
It's really a question for Amtrak. However, we're going to try and get the remaining 2 rail cars off the tracks probably tomorrow, and Amtrak can get in there and start re-railing it. Once they're allowed to get in there, they can do it within a matter of hours. They want to open that track up also.
Okay, so an investigation will, on this end over here in Philadelphia, will wrap up within a few days, you believe?
Yeah, probably about 7 days we'll be here, but then we will take the cars. The cars are already, 5 of the cars are already being taken to a secure location where we can start a detailed analysis. And just because they're moved doesn't mean that we're through with them. In fact, it's the other way around.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good.
Were you at the scene?
I was just at the scene. I took a tour led by Ntsb as well as the lead officials at Amtrak, and sadly it is an absolutely horrific scene.
What does it look like to you?
Well, frankly, it's actually having seen it only on TV until very recently, it is far worse in person. Television is able to show isolated elements of it, but when you're able to look at it in totality from one end to the other, it's hard to believe that the death toll wasn't much higher than 7. The 7 people lost their lives. It's a tragedy, obviously, for their families, but if you were to just look at the scene, you would actually think the carnage would have been much worse.
Now, NTSB says that the operator was going 106 miles per hour. How do you feel about that? You know, when you hear 106 miles per hour, like, what do you think?
Well, and one of the questions I have is, how did no snap control take effect? And the fact that 30th Street Station isn't far from here. 30th Street Station, to translate for out-of-towners, is the main downtown Philadelphia train station, kind of our equivalent of Penn Station, and that's not too far from here, about 4 to 5 miles. So the fact that in a very short distance, he was able to get from 0 to well over 100, and there was no system in place to prevent that, I think clearly shows that we need to do more in terms of safety.
Now, that has been talked about over the years, about having a system that's called the PTC system. You know, are you angry that the system was not in place? You know, that could have prevented.
Yeah, actually, the NTSB officer just said to me about 20 minutes ago, had that system been in place, this would have been prevented. And I asked her again, can you repeat that? That's definitive. This certainly would have been prevented, and she said yes. If something like that doesn't spur us to act, frankly, I don't know what will.
Right. So, do you know what's holding up the system? Like,
I mean, to be blunt, it costs money, and there's certain people that don't want to spend money on it. I mean, in reality, that's what it comes down to. These sorts of things cost money. I believe they should be spent. I believe that it's worth it, that it's actually in public safety interest. But unfortunately, there are those with different points of view.
Now, will you be speaking to your colleagues in Washington to get this system in place? I know Senator Schumer has been very vocal about safety on Amtrak.
Yeah, and I talked to my friend Steve Israel, who's colleagues with today, and share a lot of. We have a similar kind of district. Me in Philadelphia, him in New York, and we were talking about it, as well as other colleagues of mine. So a number of the challenge is, frankly, a number of us from the Northeast corridor, from Philadelphia, from New York, Washington, D.C., from this area, have been pushing for this for years. We have to make, frankly, legislators from the rest of the country realize why this is a national imperative.
Okay. Now, if this was not a heart attack, or, you know, would you ask for some serious charges?
Well, I don't want to jump the gun on the district attorney or U.S. attorney. whichever legal authority would have jurisdiction. I would leave that to them.
If that's where it turns.
If it turns out that the person acted in a negligent way, then clearly criminal charges would be warranted.
Okay. Were you down at the scene?
Yes.
Okay, and what did it look like from your...
Like tragic, horrible. It looked like an erect, it looked like toy trains crumbled up. Like this can get crumbled up and they're massive. It's horrible. For anybody to be stuck in one of them climbing their way out, it's so sad.
Now, what do you think when you hear the NTSB say it's 100, that the operator was driving 106 miles per hour?
He got up to 106 miles an hour from 30th Street to here in 5 miles. I don't know why he was trying to go so fast.
Now,
and then he finally realized he was going too fast, and he hit the brake, and then he came down. And then he came down to 102. But by that time, it was too late.
Now, if this was a case of negligence, let's say, if he was sleeping but not a heart attack, which I mean,
they're still investigating.
Right, but if this is something that was preventable, would you like to see criminal charges?
Absolutely. There's 7 people dead, 6 or 7 still critical. Who knows if they're going to find any more? Who knows if they're critical? I mean, you're trusting yourself. You're trusting your lives to these people. What are they doing going 106 miles an hour in a 5-mile span, coming up against the curve like this?
Now, over the years, we've been hearing in Washington, there's a lot of discussion in Washington about PTC control. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Well, PTC control was effective in 2008 after they had the accident in 2007. And what that does, it's on the poles and in the engine. And if you're going too fast like that, on a curve where you're not, it would shut it down. It would break it down automatically. Originally, it was before on the straightaway, so to avoid head-on collisions. When the light was red and you got a green, if the guy had the red, he went through it, it would shut it down. But now they got to put them on the curves. They had to 2015 to do it. Amtrak's trying to comply, but unfortunately, they get it done in time. If it was on them poles out there right now, we wouldn't be here today.
Now, will you be pushing for it to speed up
all
this?
over the country. For every train that has hazmats and passengers, because the hazmats are important, and the passengers certainly are important.
You use the word preventable. Now, if it turns out where, let's say, he fell asleep in the front car, would you
I can't speculate on what happened to the gentleman. I heard the NTSB say that this was a preventable event. My take on that was it's preventable because if you're not doing 106 on a 50-mile per hour limit curve, this more than likely doesn't happen. I don't know what happened with the engineer. I don't know what happened in the cab, and I'll leave it to the law enforcement people to figure that out. We're 18 hours into the event now, but 106 miles an hour on a 50-mile an hour max turn. I mean, that's just insanity. We lost lives here, and whether they're Philadelphians or not, they're Americans and they're human beings, and our hearts are broken as a result.
Can you describe to me what you heard last night?
Last night, it was just like boom, and then the concrete shook. The daggone light down there was so bright, it looked like the sun was coming back up at about 9:33, approximately. And it sounded like maybe a meth lab had blew up. It was a really loud boom, bazooka status.
I've been here 54, but it was 1943. There was a train wreck. Pay attention! That killed 70 people on that exact same curve.
Mm-hmm. And your father told you the story?
Yes.
Okay, well, what did he tell you?
That was the story that was told often, even to his grandchildren and whatnot, about took the curve too fast, and that's what happened.
Now, did you hear the boom last night?
Yes, I did. I saw from my back bedroom window. I saw. It just was like I thought it was a lightning bolt had hit something. A big boom and sparks and everything flying. Actually, it was the train hitting the electricity poles, and it was frightening. I mean, I got out of bed and came downstairs.
Now, what was your first thought? Did you think it was an explosion, or you knew it was a crash?
I thought it was an explosion, but seeing the poles fall, I knew it had to be on the railroad.
Now, what did you see after that? Did you run to the site?
No, I didn't go to the site. I did not go to the site, but I immediately turned on news, nothing, I heard nothing. and came out here, and it wasn't until,
How long did it take for the police and
I'm
fire
gonna
department?
say that they were there within. It happened according to me at exactly 9:23, and by 9:27, I heard the first sirens, and so it was within 5 minutes. I was sitting on the roof, and I heard a loud explosion. It sounded like an explosion, and a cloud of smoke, and a burning metal smell. And I immediately went down to look to see what happened, and walked down to the end of Wheatsheaf Lane where the railroad tracks are, and I could see the first car had moved over at least 8 feet off the tracks, so that was nowhere near near the tracks anymore. And the other cars were basically in a mist of cloud of smoke and pretty badly mangled. And took about 10 minutes for the police to come. The response time was very quick, and they secured the area very quickly.
And did you hear screams?
I did hear people, crying, help me, and, basic panic.
I heard it crashed, and I came outside. I seen the cops picking up bodies and situations like that. It was all smoky, like the gravel picking up afterwards.
I noticed something happened because my house was shaking when that happened. All the houses over here, they completely shaking in less than 10 minutes. All of my goodness, this was full of policemen and fire department, rescue, doctors, nurses, everybody. This street was, completely full.
And, when the trains come by, they do ring that horn. They blow the horn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you didn't hear that last night.
Were there any whistles or bells going off warning him in the cab that he was speeding?
The question is, at what point did the train reach 106 miles per hour? Our initial examination of the data, we have not gone back that far because it is a very detailed analysis of reading those data. We wanted to find out the speed so we can report those to you. We will be coming up with the time. That's one of the things we will do. We don't have those exact figures at this point.
It was awful. I've never seen anything like that in my life. As I was walking over, one of your guys said, prepare yourself. And that was the best advice I ever had.